The Unlit House. Episode 4. The Visit. Narrated by Atlas. The following is a work of fiction inspired by real events. Names and details have been changed. If you've been with me for 3 weeks now, 3 episodes, 3 rituals, 3 nights at the desk, you've been waiting for this one. You may not know that yet, but I do. Every door I have not opened, every name I have not said, every reason I had for closing the book at midnight and writing, "Fuck, love," like it was a closing argument. They all live in this episode. This is the conversation that built the universe. This is The Visit. December 2019. I drove to an undisclosed location. Hadn't been home in a while. The kind of while that only makes sense when you're running hard enough to stop noticing how far you've gone. I was excited. I want you to hear that because what I'm about to tell you is going to make you forget I started the trip with my chest open. But I did. I drove the last stretch with the music up. I rehearsed the "Hi Mom" in my head a couple of times so it would land warm. And then I walked through the door. And the air was wrong. The way a room can be lit and still feel like a basement. The way a refrigerator can hum but not be cold. I thought I was tired. I thought it was the road, the year. It was none of those things. The house was off. The lights were on, but the house was off. I just hadn't said it out loud yet. I stopped at my aunt's place first. She came out to meet me the way family does, arms first, questions second. She asked about my father, how he was doing. Said she was proud of him for quitting smoking. I paused. He didn't quit. She looked at me like I'd said something wrong, and I thought, no, he said something wrong. He'd been out here building a whole narrative, a man turning over new leaves, getting healthy, running his race, while smoking. I filed it away. Every family has its small deceits. I kept driving. When I got to the house, he was outside, playing dominoes on his phone, cigarette burning between his fingers, looking like a man without a single thing to hide. I watched him for a second before he saw me. "Why are you telling people I'm still smoking?" First words out of his mouth. Not hello, an accusation dressed up as a question. And I said, "Why are you telling people you quit?" He looked at me. And then, casual, like a man reminding you that he's always watching, he said, "I bet you didn't know I have cameras in the living room." I said whatever and walked inside. But I filed that away too. My father was sleeping on the downstairs couch. That's the thing. My father had a routine his entire life. Upstairs, same bed, same wife, same night. For the entire run of my childhood and adolescence and adulthood, up to that visit. And there he was, downstairs. I asked him light, "Hey, why are you down here?" He said, "I'm old. It's closer to the fridge." I said, "Okay, Dad." I let it go. Because what else was I going to do? Closer to the fridge is the kind of answer a son accepts because the alternative is to ask the question that lives underneath it. My mother moved through the house like a woman who had rearranged the furniture in her mind a long time ago and stopped waiting for someone to notice. She didn't look at him when she walked past. She didn't offer him food. She moved like he was furniture, like he was a lamp. I noticed. I tucked it away. I told myself 10 different stories and picked the softest one. I was already managing the situation before I knew there was a situation. I'd been there a few days before I noticed something else. My father didn't go into my mother's room. Not once. I noticed it the way you notice a missing sound. You don't realize the clock was ticking until it stops. He moved through the house like there were rooms he'd been exiled from. I didn't ask why. Not yet. Then one afternoon, and I cannot tell you what made it that afternoon and not another one, my mother and I were sitting talking. About nothing, mostly. My father walked through the room and went back to his couch. My mother kept her face still. And when his back was to us, and I want you to remember this because she chose this moment, she started to tell me. She told me to come to her room. That was the only safe room, the one without cameras. the one he wasn't allowed into. And I didn't know why he wasn't allowed until she started talking. She sat in her chair. I was on the bed. Or maybe she was on the bed and I was in the chair. The geography blurs because what she said rearranged everything else. She started with the finances. Of course she did. You always start with the thing that's easiest to prove. Paper, numbers, accounts that didn't add up, taxes she wasn't getting, loans he had been taking against the house, not household debts, his debts. I owe us, promissory notes. Moving money like a man juggling plates in the dark, hoping nobody turned the lights on before he could set them down clean. I started doing the math. I started thinking about how I could help. She kept going. She told me about the cheating. I want to be honest with you. When she first said he cheated, I felt almost relieved, because I had been carrying a suspicion my whole life and it was finally being named. Okay, so I wasn't crazy. The thing I sensed was real. But she didn't stop at, he cheated. She told me he had given her STIs. More than once. Over a period that stretched back farther than I had been alive. He was the only man she had ever been with. Read that sentence again. He was the only man she had ever been with. So whatever she had, she got from him. Whatever she had been treating in private for years, she got from him. The trust she had given him in her early 20s had been spent against her body for the next 4 decades. She told me about a mistress, a woman who had recently contacted her, not him, her, to inform her that she wanted him for herself, that she was tired of sharing, that she had decided my mother was the inconvenience. And to make her case, this woman sent my mother photographs of him in my brother's bedroom. I want you to sit in that detail for a second. My brother's bedroom. Not a hotel, not somewhere else we could file away. The room down the hall, the walls I had known my whole life. He had used that room. He had taken those photographs in that room. He had sent them to a woman who was not his wife, who then forwarded them to his wife, so that his wife would understand the affair was not casual. And the way I found out was on a Tuesday afternoon in my mother's room, while my father was 10 feet away eating popcorn. She kept going. She told me about the text messages she had read, the jewelry she had found that wasn't hers and wasn't a gift for her, the time she had confronted him and he told her she was imagining things. Then she told me about the gun. They found it under the table in the living room. He said he was going to shoot himself. I heard that and something clarified in my chest like a lens snapping into focus. Because I knew that wasn't real. A man who actually wants to die doesn't announce it, doesn't leave the gun where it can be found, doesn't time the discovery for maximum impact. That gun was a prop, a manipulation, a way to make himself the victim in a story where he was the architect of every wound. But here's what I also knew. My mother wasn't sure, and she had every reason not to be sure, because a man who bugs his own house, who drives his wife in his mistress's car, who steals from his own family and keeps the lights burning all night so his own dark won't catch up to him, that man is capable of things you don't put in a Father's Day letter. And then, quietly, the way you say a fact, she said, "If I go missing, he did it." She said it the way you'd say the car needs an oil change, not theatrical, not hysterical, practical. She had decided in advance that if something happened to her, she wanted me to know where to look, so I wouldn't waste time looking elsewhere. That is a sentence a mother does not say to a son unless she has already considered it as a possibility. That is a sentence she said to me anyway, on Christmas, while my father was on the couch, eating popcorn. She told me one more thing, and this one turned the most. She told me she hadn't always been the wife. She had been the other woman once. She knew the rules. She'd played the game from the other side of the table, and she'd won, or thought she had, or thought winning meant he'd chosen her. And then she sat across from me 20-something years later, explaining that he had never stopped playing. I said, "Well, you're a fool. You knew that couldn't work." Not kind, but true. And she knew it was true because she had known it herself for years and never let herself say it out loud. She wasn't looking for me to make her feel better. She was looking for someone to finally be honest with her in that room. I was her son. It was the least I could do. She also told me about the car. It used to be purple, a purple Buick Enclave. I remembered it clearly. When I arrived, it was black. She told me why. He had been driving his mistress in that car, running her around town in the same vehicle my mother rode in. Same seats, same air. So my mother made him change the color. She couldn't leave yet, but she could make him feel it, make him look at that car every day and know that she knew. A small power, a quiet one, but hers. That's who my mother is. She doesn't need a sword to draw blood. I asked her why she didn't leave. She gave me reasons, excuses. The version of the answer a woman gives when she has already had the conversation with herself 1,000 times and knows there is no good answer at the bottom of it. She didn't know how to start over, didn't know who she'd be if she wasn't his wife, didn't know how to navigate the money, didn't know how to walk away from 40 years. And I said something I have replayed in my head every day since. Mom, I love you, but I can't give you a second chance on life when I haven't even had my first. I meant, I am 34 years old. The blueprint you and Dad gave me is the only one I have, and I can't rescue you out of this house while I'm still trying to figure out how to build something I've never seen. But what I will do, I will support you. When you need me, you call. I will take care of you. I will take care of my brother, too. I meant it then. I mean it now. That promise doesn't have an expiration date. She told me one more thing before the conversation was over. Your father can't sleep with the lights off. I was confused. I asked what she meant. She said, one night when I had been visiting and turned the lights off, he woke up, came out of bed, turned every light in the house back on. And they had stayed on since, all night, every room. His demons can't stand the light. It's the only way he can deal with himself. That sentence. That is what the entire universe is named after. That is what you have heard at the end of every episode. Even when the lights are on, they're off. I built a podcast around that line. I filled notebooks with it. And every time I have closed an entry with it, every time you have heard me close an episode with it, I have been quoting my mother. That line is hers. She gave it to me in her room with the door closed while he was on the couch with the lights on so the dark wouldn't catch up to him. She was the first person to tell me there was a difference between a lit house and a home. There's a scripture, old as the book itself. Whatever you do in the dark will come to the light. I heard it as a child and thought it was a warning about me, something adults said to keep you honest. Turned out it was a prophecy about my father. Everything he did in the dark, every lie, every woman, every dollar he pocketed, every cigarette he hid, every camera he installed to watch the house he was burning down from the inside. All of it came to the light, in a room he couldn't enter, on a night he didn't know about, through a sun he underestimated. Whatever you do in the dark will come to the light. That's not a warning. That's a promise. I couldn't stay after that. The weight of what she had given me to carry, I needed to put it down somewhere safe before it broke something in me. I felt bad for her, I did, but I had already told her the truth. I left, went to see Bay, stayed there through January 2nd or 3rd, wrapped in something warm while everything I had learned in that room cooled down enough to carry. I came back on or around my mother's birthday, said goodbye, got in the car, and I never spoke to my father about any of it. Not then. Not yet. Maybe not ever. He was outside when I left, probably playing dominoes, probably smoking, probably thinking his cameras saw everything. They didn't see the room. They never see the room. The car is black now. The gun is gone. He went into a nursing home the following year. And if you believe in timing, if you believe the universe moves with purpose, you understand what that means. Because without that nursing home, the math doesn't work, the finances collapse, the house falls, and my mother— I don't finish that sentence. I don't have to. She told me he was jealous of me, that when I had gotten the career, the steady one, the uniform, the paycheck, he had not been proud. He had been threatened. He had hustled his whole life, never went back to finish what he started, and the idea that his son had out-earned him, had a path he never built for himself, had bothered him in a way that never fully surfaced but always showed up. In the beat too late on a compliment, in the absence at milestones, in the small comments at family dinners that arrived like gifts wrapped around something that cut. A father who hates his son can be confronted. A father who envies his son is a father who will never let his son grow past him without finding a way to take him down. Quietly. Over years. I had felt it my whole life. My mother named it for me in that room. She told me something else, something about who she was when she met him. She told me women had said it to her whole life. Your husband, he's a charmer. Your son looks just like his daddy. That last one. When I was a kid, that was a compliment. Aunts said it, family friends said it. Women who had known him in his prime said it with a little smile. He's gonna be just like his father. I wore it. I leaned into the resemblance. I cultivated some of it. And then, sitting in that room, I understood that my mother had been hearing the same compliment for 50 years. And every time she heard it, what she was really hearing was, your son is going to do to some woman what your husband has done to you. The compliment was always the curse. I had been wearing it like a uniform. I want to tell you what I thought about on the drive back. I didn't think about Lucy. That part was already settling. The phone rang and how it didn't. But on that drive, sitting in everything my mother had handed me, I thought about something else. I thought about what love was. A man's parents had spent 40 years in a house with the lights on so the dark wouldn't get in. And all they had to show for it was an underwater mortgage and a couch. And a man who couldn't sleep next to his wife. What was love? What had any of it been? I drove home, made it to my room, sat on the bed, opened a notebook. I wrote, "Fuck love." I closed the notebook. I went to sleep with the lights off. I dreamed I was my father. I woke up in the dark. I turned on every light in the room. And I sat there until morning. 10 months later, I would pick up a different notebook in a different room. October 1st, 2020, Day 1. Can't see, pupils dilated. You know that page. What I didn't tell you when I told you about that page in episode 2, I didn't tell you why I couldn't see. The pupils were a medical thing, sure. But the seeing, the spiritual seeing, the I can't make sense of my life seeing, started in that kitchen, with my mother, while my father was on the couch with the lights on. I had been blind since December. The notebook didn't start in October. The notebook started the moment my mother told me his demons couldn't stand the light. It just took me 10 months to find a page I could put it on. And then 3 more years to be ready to say it out loud. That's tonight. This is The Visit. I am Atlas, bearing the weight my mother handed me in a room he couldn't enter. And even when the lights are on, they're off. Whatever you do in the dark will come to the light. She told me first. Now I'm telling you. Next week on The Unlit House, The Code. New Year's Eve, 2019. Atlas is in Bay's room, phone in his hand. Midnight comes and goes. And the woman he has not maimed, the one you've been feeling in every episode, doesn't call. When she finally does, it lasts 40 seconds. She's in a robe, she's with a friend. And the code that meant everything goes silent. The relationship didn't end on January 3rd. It ended at 12:01. He just needed 3 more days to believe it.